Hello everyone and welcome again to another Teacher Joseph podcast. Today we're going to talk about buses. All things buses. Big ones, small ones, double-deckers, single-deckers, open top and bendy buses. You wouldn't think there would be so much to say about buses, but yes, in English we have many ways to describe their features. So that's the topic for today's little podcast. Let me begin by saying that buses are going to be very popular here over the next few days because we have a number of rail strikes coming up, which means that people won't be able to use the trains on those days. Rail strikes are not so common, but every few years the unions get together and declare that they want something, maybe a pay rise or better conditions, and that's about to happen here. In the old days, our bus services and their train services were public. They were owned by the government. But these days they are all private. And the union still exists, so they have a lot of power from their old public days. They haven't really caught up with the idea yet that they actually have to make money to survive. So it's one of these cases where everyone's being hurt, not just the government. Anyway, let's move on to buses. Okay, so let's do some descriptions. So, you know the buses which are very long and they hold a lot of people and therefore the usual public routes. They stop every 5 minutes and they only have one level. They're called single-decker buses. Single-decker buses. Then you have the ones which have two levels and you have to walk up the stairs. They're called double-decker buses. Double-decker buses. Historically, maybe we could say that they are icons. In London, there were red buses that you could jump on the back of them. They were double-deckers, and as they moved, you could just jump on, and the conductor on the bus would sell you a ticket. I'm not sure if any of you remember those buses. You can see them on movies. They were double-decker buses, but they're sometimes referred to as Routemaster buses. Routemaster. I'm not sure if that's just the brand name or if it was actually the company that made them, but you can sometimes hear them being referred to as Routemasters. In fact, they've been brought back to London over the last few years, so you can still see them around, but I don't think you can jump on the back of them anymore. I think you have to enter by the front and pay the driver. You might be able to get on the back and scan your electronic ticket. I don't know, but I know they brought them back anyway. But of course, because of health and safety, you can't just jump on and off in the middle of the street anymore. You have to wait until the bus is actually stopped at the bus stop. Okay, let's get back to our buses. So what about bendy buses? What's a bendy bus? Well, a bendy bus is one which bends in the middle. It looks like two single-decker buses which have been joined together with a bit of rubber. And when they go around corners, they quite often can take that corner very well when they're driving because one bit goes round before the next bit does, you know. So they're called bendy buses. They're not very popular here now because there was a number of them went on fire. I'm not sure if the government prohibited them, but certainly I haven't seen one on my local route for quite some time. A bendy bus, because it bends. So we call them bendy buses, from the verb to bend. Okay, so what do we have so far? Single deckers, double deckers, route masters, which are those red iconic ones, bendy buses. So there's also coaches, which we've spoken about before. They're the kind of luxury buses that take you directly from one destination to another. Those buses usually have nice seats, Wi-Fi, built-in radio, and driver announcements. They're not usually used for local routes. They're usually used for bigger city-to-city routes. We also have these really small buses which serve maybe villages or a group of villages. They look like half-sized buses. They might hold a maximum of 30 people, for example. We don't see them very much now because of COVID, of course, when more space was required. But these buses generally were referred to as buzzers, hoppers, minibuses. Minibus would be the actual name for them, but buzzers and hoppers were kind of like names they invented, like a hop-on bus, for example. Okay, so we've got single deckers, double deckers. There might even be triple deckers somewhere, although I don't recall seeing any. Route masters, bendy buses, minibuses, hoppers, buzzers. There's also shuttle buses. These are buses which go direct from one destination to another. I'm not clear on how many stops they make, but I've heard this term as well, a shuttle bus. For example, a shuttle bus would be one which takes you maybe from the airport to a city. A shuttle service. I've sometimes heard trains being called shuttles as well. So that's another word to look out for. In American English, it's very different. They use words like transit buses, intercity buses, and I've no idea what those mean. I think a transit bus is probably a public bus, no? The one that goes around the villages. I don't know. You need to check on that separately. I don't know much about how Americans use their bus services or what they're called. One big thing for them is Greyhound buses. They seem to be some kind of intercity service. This highlights again the differences between American English and British English. It's really important, as I've mentioned before, that if you're learning English, you choose an area and you begin to settle down, studying the metaphors, the idioms, types of buses that they have, etc., so that you know what to expect when you get there. Even if you're learning English for a hobby, really important that you decide on an area and make it yours. Because if you keep wandering around the world, thinking that the English world is all the same, and yeah, some people do, you're going to get into a bit of a mess, because we have all different habits, idioms, bus routes and everything else. So you really need to focus in on one area that you love and make it yours. Meet people from that area, begin to understand more about it, and let it affirm your identity, because this is another problem. Identity. Who do you think you are in the English world? Who are you in the English world as an English speaker? For example, if today I decide to learn Chinese or even Italian, these countries are very different by region. So do I just become Chinese or Italian? Well, of course not, no. There'll be a particular area that I like for a reason. Maybe I have a friend there, or maybe I'm just attracted to a region I went on holiday to. So you really need to decide where you want to be in the English world and then begin to drill down into that area. I don't recommend you keep it high level unless, of course, you just want some academic understanding of the English world. There we are. This is some, these have been, I should say, some references to buses in the English world. I hope you've enjoyed this, and let's talk again soon. Goodbye.